Hey, 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 this is Jennifer Allwood, and this is the Jennifer Allwood Show, where we talk about creating a beautiful home and building a creative business. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here with me this week. You guys are such faithful listeners, and it's just such a joy of mine to be able to do this weekly for you. So I'm super excited about my guest today, friends. I have Jaime Ivey on my podcast today. And Jaime is a professional podcaster, like a legit podcaster. Like she's a professional podcaster. She's a writer and a speaker. She lives in Austin, Texas, where she is the proud mama to her 4 kiddos and a pastor's wife. She has the Happy Hour with Jaime Ivey podcast, which I'm guessing most of you have already heard of. It's on that podcast that she chats with new guests every week about big things in life, small things in life, and everything in between. And we're going to talk to Jaime today and talk about her book, which is called If You Only Knew, which releases in January. I'm super excited to find out more about that. And so help me to welcome her here. Hey, Jaime, how are you?
Hey, thank you for having me here. I loved how you were like a professional podcaster. And I'm like, what? This is just crazy. I just have a cool job.
No, you do have a cool job.
I love my job.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. How long have you been podcasting?
3.5 years.
Okay, so you were like the OG, like the original gangster podcasters. Am I right?
Which is funny because, well, yeah, it feels that way. But then there's other people who they're like, no, I'm the original. Like I've been podcasting for 7 years or whatever. But
I've been podcasting for 7 years. I don't even think I had an iPhone 7 years ago for the podcast app, right?
I know. Yes. You had to go down and download stuff and it didn't just pop up in your phone. When the iPhone put it in their operating system, the little purple button. That was just the best thing that ever happened to podcasters right there.
Right. Well, I love your podcast. And it's so funny how I stumbled across you. And I'm sure you hear people stumble across, I hear that people stumble across.
Yeah.
So I was talking to my friend Christine, little shout out to Christine there, about a year ago, and she loves you. And I was just casually telling her, so I think I'm going to start a podcast. And she's like, oh, you're kidding me. Have you heard Jaime Ivey's podcast? And I'm like, no, I don't know who Jaime Ivey is. She's like, oh girl, you need to go listen to Jaime Ivey. And so I went and listened, and I can see why people love your podcast. It's like lighthearted and deep at the same time.
Which is what I love. It's like girlfriends.
Yes, it is. And I think that's why people absolutely love it. And so that's how I found you. And then I found out you were from Austin. And so that's right? You're still in Austin? Okay, I was going to say, I haven't heard different. But so I was interviewing John Acuff this week for my podcast, and he's from Nashville. And we were talking about how I think all the cool people either live in Austin or Nashville. Do you realize that?
I'll take that compliment. There are a lot of great people here in Austin and a lot of great people in Nashville. I think you're onto something.
And I'm like, okay, clearly I need to move.
Where are you? In Missouri?
I'm in Kansas City. Thank you for knowing that it's Missouri and not Kansas. Yes, we're in God's country, north of the river, close to the airport. Honey, if you ever want barbecue, come to Kansas City and I'll take you to sushi, because I'm not really a barbecue fan.
That's funny.
And then I found out that you're friends with Jen Hatmaker, who I love. And then you're friends with Rachel Hollis, who I adore. And so then I feel like we have this whole 6 degrees of separation thing going on.
That's funny.
So let's talk about your podcast and talk about how you started and what kind of your background is and how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So podcasting, I kind of stumbled upon it, but in a weird way. So in 2011, I was just doing my normal thing. I was not working. I was mothering full time. I had 4 kids.
We're going to talk about that.
Just doing life. That's all. I was just doing life. And I was driving down and I heard my favorite radio station talk about they were having a contest.
Yes.
And they were gonna have it for a DJ. So I applied, because who wouldn't apply when they're mom to 4 and never been on the radio before? But
and you have a chance to DJ something. Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Best job ever. Why not? So
it's reminded me of Kid and Play. What movie was that where Kid and Play are DJing, and
I don't know.
Okay. All right. So we'll go with it here. Okay.
But so I'm thinking, hey, I'll apply. So I applied, and longest story ever, over a couple months, I ended up winning this contest. So I go from, stay-at-home mom, has not worked full-time since before babies.
Right.
To on air in the morning, 5 a.m., crazy. So
they hired you for a gig.
They hired me.
You didn't just win the contest. They said, you won the contest, and oh, by the way, you're good. We want to hire you.
You have a job. Yeah.
Awesome.
And the contest was set up all along to give someone a job. But when I went in for my day on the air, I literally thought there's no way I'm going to win. You know, there were four other awesome people. And that would have been just the coolest thing I ever did in life, was like a day on the air. Right.
Yeah.
And so I won. I mean, it was just literally, Aaron and I are like, what do we do now? Like, I've never worked outside the home since we had kids. I mean, that's a big thing that you're undertaking. And so I got the job and I loved it.
Awesome.
I mean, I loved it. I had never spoken into a microphone before. I had never done audio or anything. And the guys I worked with were so kind, and they'd been doing radio they were like years and years and years.
Yeah.
And they would tell me, they're like, Jaime, I mean, I'm not like, this is not a brag. This is what they would say. They're like, Jaime, you're really good at this. You've never done this. And I'm like, no, I've never done this. And so I loved it. It was the coolest job I've ever had. But at the same time, 2 of our kids we adopted from Haiti, and they had only been home for a year. And I'm telling you, my family was falling apart. Like, my marriage was struggling. My kids were struggling. Mm-hmm. Everything was struggling, except for I was having the time in my life with the best job ever. And so I had to make a really hard decision, and I quit after 4 months. So just 4 months. So I say I had the smallest career in radio ever. But what it did is it put something in me where I'm like, I love that. Yes. So I still didn't know what to do. Like, the next summer I thought about applying for another radio job, and it just, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. And then I was a guest on someone's podcast. And after I got off the phone with them, I thought to myself, I can do what you just did. Yeah, I can do this. And so then 6 months later, I created my show. And
your show is so much fun, and you have been like nominated in the category of faith for your podcast. Am I right?
Yes.
For awards and whatnot. And you've been podcasting for, like you said, years now. And so you've actually taken it live at this point. Like, you're doing some happy hour with Jaime Ivey there in Austin, aren't you?
Yes.
Like an after hours party. Like, tell us what that's about. Because every time I see you post about it, I'm like, I think I need a trip to Austin.
You do. You need a trip to Austin, because these events are so much fun. So we've been doing the show for a couple of years, and it was, you know what it was? You said have you interviewed Rachel Hollis?
I have interviewed Rachel Hollis. Yes. Yeah.
So Rachel Hollis was on the show about 2 years ago in January, and she was like one of my early guests. And I don't even know how I stumbled upon her, but as we started talking, I started to get the idea that it would be fun to do a live show. And she told me she was going to be in Austin the next March, like in 3 months. You know, that was January. This is March. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to do a live show, I want to have awesome guests. And so I picked the weekend that Rachel was going to be in town. She committed to do it for me. I mean, I was just like asking friends favors left and right.
And she's so great. She's great. So great. At doing things like that, which is amazing.
And I needed people, if I was going to do the first one, I needed people that I knew were going to be comfortable with a microphone in front of an audience, all those kind of things. So it was Rachel Hollis, Jen Hatmaker, and Jessica Honegger, and myself. So that was our very first.
All-star lineup, right?
It was a great lineup. Yeah. So it was our very first live event. And I'm telling you, it's so crazy to think about now, because I just planned it. Me and my girlfriend Amanda, who works with me, and we sold tickets, and they sold out in like,
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. And so we did that night, and it was so much fun. We had, at this time, my husband doesn't do this anymore, but he used to cook for all the events. I mean, we're talking 125 women.
Oh, gosh.
He would cook for all of them.
And girls like to eat. I mean, I'm an eater.
Aaron likes to cook. And so he would cook, and we had, giveaways and prizes and wine. I mean, it's a fun girls' night. And then after that, when that one sold out so quickly, I did the next one, and we said, let's do 2 nights. And so now when we do it in the spring and in the fall, and we do Friday and Saturday night back to back. And it's
I love it.
So much fun.
I love it. And did you ever think that you would do something like that? And the reason I ask is I was telling people on a Facebook Live the other day that, so I'm out for a WOG, which is a walk jog, Jaime.
Okay, I like that.
I'm out for a WOG this spring, and I was thinking to myself, because I coach business owners who are creative people on how to make money online, and I was thinking, gosh, I wish there was a business conference for just creative people, because I think creative people are some of the most special and yet weirdest and fanciest and oddest people on the planet. And so there's plenty of business courses, and there's plenty of like conferences where you learn how to paint, and you learn how to stencil, but I don't know of any business courses for creative people. And so I'm wogging along, and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, I wish there was one of those. And literally, like, I felt the Lord kind of tap me on the shoulder, and just that still small voice, start one. And I'm like, oh, heck to the no, is my internal, my gut reaction. There is no chance I'm going to do that. And so, he had to prod a little bit. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to open up a conference in Kansas City and just offer it to the women that I coach every month. And I'm going to cross my fingers and pray for it that I get 20 people. And 44 people later, we just had my first 2-day conference in Kansas City last month, which blew me away, because never in a million years did I think I would ever do something like that. I've hated public speaking all of my life. life. I took speech class my first semester of college so that I wouldn't have like diarrhea for the next 4 years.
Right. Get it out of the way.
I'm like, let's just get it out of the way. And so then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm forcing myself to speak, in front of a crowd and gathering all these people. And so I love that you just like, you didn't know what you were doing and you just did it. And I didn't know what I was doing and I just did it. And I think there's a lesson there.
There's such a lesson there. And I talk to people all the time about who are wanting to start a podcast. And I love encouraging women to do that. There's enough women in this world that we can have more podcasts. And
Amen.
so I always say, they're always like, I don't know what to do. And when I started my show and when I started the live events, I did not have one freaking clue about how to do a podcast, how to do a live event.
That's why God made Google.
Yes. You can find everything on Google and YouTube. And so I just did it, and granted, if I start another podcast, which I always dream about starting another podcast, I'll be a little bit more educated this time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so the road won't be as rocky, but you have to start somewhere. And so I love how you're like, how God says you do it. And you're like, nope, not me.
I'm like, you have got the wrong girl.
But you just started
diarrhea thing? Yeah.
Right. You just took one step after another. Next thing you know, you got 45 women who want to learn and everything.
Absolutely. And whose lives I think were genuinely impacted. And they're already talking about, when are you doing the next one? And are you gonna, put it in a bigger venue and offer it to more people? And so, so I love what you're doing. And I know when I looked on your website, I was like, oh, her live events look fancy because they have like patio, like the lights in the trees. And I'm all about the ambiance. And I get the feeling Austin in the spring and fall is probably glorious. Am I right?
It is glorious. It can either be like gloriously hot or gloriously awesome. Like October has been an amazing month in Austin. I'm like kicking myself that we didn't have more like outdoor gatherings at our house in this month because it's been so wonderful. But I'll tell you what, when you mentioned the way it looks and everything, I can't do that. I can't decorate. If you see something cool in my home, it's because my husband did it. And so I know that if I'm going to put on an event, I literally, like, I'll give you an example. The last event, I was in charge of getting cups for the wine. I bring the cups to the event.
Girl, I love that.
My assistant looks at me and she's like, we are not serving wine in these cups. I'm like, what? They're like wine cups. She's like, these are the ugliest cups I've ever seen.
Oh, goodness.
She called someone to go get new cups. Like, I just cannot be held responsible for things like that because I'm not good at it. So when it looks amazing, it's because I have girlfriends who are amazing.
And so you stay in your lane. I love that. Just stay in your lane.
I can't decorate. Are you kidding?
Right.
I would literally throw paper plates on the table.
Okay. So I can decorate, right? Like I've done a decorating thing or two and been on television. I was on TV this morning, as a matter of fact.
Well, your house looks amazing.
Well, hey, thank you.
You look amazing.
Well, thank you, girlfriend. Okay. Don't look really close and we'll keep this between you and I, but see how, and I know you guys can't see me, but Jaime can. I literally have a bruise right there. You want to know why? Because I've got 3 conferences and speaking engagements coming up. And so I got Botox this week and I know people are going to judge, and that's okay.
Would it give you a bruise first?
You know what? The last couple times it's giving me a bruise right next to my eye. So I went on television this morning with this bruise on my face.
You can't see it. I can't see it here.
Okay. I've tried really hard to cover with makeup and I'm like, you know what? We're just going with it. So
whatever.
So I'm reading on your website and I know a lot of your story, but I want to introduce some of my listeners to your story. I just felt so drawn to you because of a lot of your adoption journey. And Jason and I tried to adopt for 4 years. And sometimes I still feel like maybe God hasn't completely closed that door. And other times I feel like the door is closed and then I feel like a failure. And then other times I feel like we didn't fail. We tried for 4 years. And so we tried domestic adopting a newborn for 2 years. We waited. And then we tried adopting out of the foster care system in Kansas City, which is a big, hot, hell of a mess. Let me just say that. The foster care system is really broken. And so we tried that for 2 years and then I just tapped out. I'm like, I cannot wait another second. I can't pull our 3 biological children through this any longer, more meetings and all of that. And so whenever I find a woman who like waited and has adopted, I just automatically feel some sense of like a little part of me knows a little part of you. And I loved the video that's on your website, Jaime, about getting your son home. And it moved me to tears. I will just tell my listeners, it's on jvivey.com. And I bawled like a baby watching the whole thing. And so don't do it when you've just fixed your mascara and are heading out on date night. So watch it when you can weep in the privacy of your home. But tell me, how did that start for you? Like when you first got married, did you always know that you wanted to adopt? Because I've always wanted to adopt. I always knew that.
Yeah, no, we did it. I don't remember ever knowing anyone that was adopted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember ever seeing any family adopt. I'm 39, and when I grew up, I don't, and it was more like if people did adopt, it was kind of like the secret, like, don't tell her she's
Yeah.
adopted,
Yeah.
So things are just different. And Aaron and I never
Yeah.
talked about adoption before we got married. Never, not one time, which is funny because most of our children joined our family through adoption
Yes.
now. So we got married and we got pregnant with our first son a little bit earlier than our plans.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like maybe married a year and a half, and we had Caden. And then from there, we were attending a church outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and a lot of families were adopting from China. And so it was kind of our first introduction to adoption, was all of these families who were adding to their family through adoption. Now, most of the families that we saw, their biological children were older. And so they were older than Aaron and I, and they were going back and kind of starting this new second wave of kids with their family.
Oh, I love that second wave.
Yeah.
I like that a whole lot.
It didn't even fit our lives. I mean, we were young, 25, 26, and we're looking at 45-year-old friends of ours do this. But God just really started to put something in our heart. And so I laugh about this now because it is awful and stupid and I don't recommend it. But we literally just walked into an adoption agency and said, what do we do? Like, I had a 7-month-old baby in my little carrier, and we walked in and we said, we just feel something. We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Can you help us? And so we didn't qualify for any international countries, probably because of our age and our only been married for maybe 4 years. But what they did tell us is they're like, we're desperately in need of parents who are willing to adopt Black or biracial boys. And Aaron and I were like, well, yeah, of course. And so that led us through a domestic adoption to our son Deacon. And so him and my biological oldest son are 22 months apart. Okay. So that was our family. We got us and 2 kids.
Was he an infant when you adopted him?
He was. We were at the hospital when he was born.
Awesome.
And we have an open relationship with his first mom and all of that. So that was our family. We were just family of 4, trucking along, 2 boys. And my husband, Aaron, was completely just satisfied with our family. Like, this is it. And I just wasn't. My mama heart was saying that I think there's more. And so I had been to Haiti on a trip. And so when Aaron and I finally came to the same page about, hey, let's, add to our family. It's God, because we never talked about adding any more biological kids. I think that we can't. And so we started the adoption process to Haiti. And then 2.5 years later, my son Amos came home. And so the thing about our process for adopting internationally to Haiti is that we knew our kids the entire time. And so when we started our process, just a few weeks later, we knew that Amos was our son.
Because you got matched.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so that whole time we were visiting, we were going on we were visiting because Haiti's close. I mean, you can get there in a day. And so that was a hard 2.5 years. But this January will be 8 years since our family's been complete and everyone home.
Okay. And then you adopted a daughter as well.
Yeah. So at the same time that we were doing that, so we started our process with just adopting my son Amos. And then we had always kind of thought in the back of our mind that if we were going to adopt a child internationally, we wanted to adopt 2 children internationally.
Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah. Everyone has their own thing. But for us, they're already going to feel different. A, because they're adopted. B, they're Black and we're both white. And so at that point, our home study had been very wise and gone ahead and approved us for 2 kids. So when we made that decision, we were ready and approved. And so then we started adopting our daughter, Story, when she was very, very, very young. And so we got to kind of watch her grow up for, 2 years.
Yeah.
She came home 3 months before Amos. So she came home first.
Okay.
Which was hard. It was really hard. But because they're not biologically related, their paperwork kind of split.
Okay. Gotcha.
You know what I mean? This was 8 years ago in Haiti. Things are so different. So she came home, and then my son actually came home 10 days after the earthquake.
Oh, goodness.
So the earthquake hit. My son is still there. And at that point.
Oh, Lord. Was your heart just open wide?
It was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, because you probably didn't know for a time if he was safe, or did you know right away? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
I remember when I heard there was an earthquake in Haiti. I was like, what? An earthquake in Haiti? And so we found out within a couple hours where he lived. He wasn't in Port-au-Prince. He was okay. But it was from there that the government decided all these kids that are so far in the process, let's get them home. And so that's how Amos came home, he came home very unconventional, even adoption ways. And so he came home right after the earthquake.
Well, people need to go to your website and watch that video. It's just absolutely.
It still makes me cry when I watch it.
Right. And so how old are your kids now?
My oldest is 13. Amos is 12, and then Deacon's 11, and Story's 9.
Okay, girl, you're busy.
I know. I'm busy. 4 kids, and they're all, really close, which is fun.
Right. It is fun. And let me tell you why it's fun, because we go to Worlds of Fun here in Kansas City, which is, an amusement park. And inevitably the 2 boys, because we have 15 and 13-year-old boys, they're on something that their little sister, our daughter who's 9, can't go on. And when we go to pick out a movie that the whole family is going to go to, well, they want to watch something that's completely different than her. So, for those of you moms who are sitting at home wondering how close together you should have your kids, listen, I would stack them on top of one another if I could go back and do it again. I honestly would.
There are pros and cons, because I will tell you this, though.
Yes, tell me.
I have very fuzzy memories of those first couple of years.
Oh yeah, you're in a blur, babe.
I can't even remember what my son looked like when he turned 3. Like I have no idea. 0 memories.
I do
too. I have a girlfriend who she has 4 kids and they're all 4 years apart. So do the math. She's been mothering a long time.
Okay.
Okay. So that's,
so does she have memories? Do you think?
Yes.
Because I've been blaming it on hormones.
She has memories because she had 4 years with each kid before a new baby came.
Yeah, I don't know, girl. Because by the time you've got 4 years, you've ditched the diaper bag.
Yes.
And I remember when we had to dig all that stuff back out with Ava, I was like, oh man, there's such freedom when you get rid of the diaper bag. It's like a whole new world. It's a whole new world. You know what I mean? It's like, It's like the world opens up when you no longer have the white bottoms and carry diapers with you.
And then when you no longer have like a car seat, and then you no longer have it's like, we can go anywhere. Anybody can pick my kids up.
Freedom. Yeah. And it's funny because, so we're just I'm a long ways ahead of you in age. I'm 46. But our kids are just a little bit older than yours. And it's amazing having teenagers, the freedom that comes with that. I mean, I hear so many people just gripe about teenagers. They give teenagers a bad name. And it's so annoying because we are enjoying the heck out of our teenagers right now. And yes, the first time I saw my son drive off to school with a 16-year-old and he's 15 and he no longer wants to take the bus, Jamie, because it's not cool. I had a mini heart attack. I mean, literally, I think I pacified myself with Hershey's Kisses and I ate my feelings. But but now that the school year we're in October, I'm like, okay, so he's driving with other kids and so far, no one's died. Everybody's good. We're good. And all of a sudden, I'm like, he gets his license in too much, Jamie. And I see another, just a
new world. We're talking about a whole new world.
Honey, I'm never going to the grocery store again.
No, and you're never taking the other kid to practice because
yes. You want gas in that car, you're driving your siblings.
It's totally the truth.
Awesome. Okay, so I have one more question for you about the adoption stuff, because I find it fascinating that you refer to the kids' biological moms as their first mom. And I wondered if there's any particular reason for that. I love it. I love the word first mom.
I've always felt that was a little bit more dignifying than birth mom.
Okay.
To me, birth mom, there's nothing wrong. It's a preference thing. Birth mom is like, oh, she gave birth to you and that was it. We value the women who birthed our children into this world. We value them because they birthed our children. We value them because they chose life for their kids. And I am fully aware that my kids have 2 moms because I have birthed a child. And so I know what that's like, and you can never take that away from me.
Yeah.
No matter what, Caden is my child because I birthed him. And I want to give that same value to their first moms, their birth moms, whatever you want to say, is that was the first mom they ever had. Even though I was at the hospital with Deacon and he came home with us 3 days later, she was his first mom. And she was the first mom he ever had. And so that's what we use at our house. I like it. Sometimes
I love it.
My daughter says my mom in Haiti, know, and that none of that offends me. I am not offended. I know I am their mom.
Yes.
And if they want to say that, I will gladly give them that. So it's great.
Are your kids able still to communicate then with their first mom in Haiti?
We haven't in Haiti much. Their situations are different. Their stories are different. We could, when the time is right, we totally could do that and it would be available. And my son, who we adopted domestically, we've seen his first mom several times. She used to live here in Austin. So
love it. I just love that whole story. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And so another thing that I stumbled on your website that I just absolutely love, and I think it's maybe from a couple years ago, but I sat and digested so much of it, was your 31 days of letters that you wrote to your former self. Did you do that last year?
It was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. It was fascinating. And they were letters like, "Dear Jamie, quit hanging out with someone else's boyfriend."
Right?
I'm like, oh girl, you are reading my mail. That was me in college. I was that girl. I was was awful. And I read your letter to your formal self, and I'm like, yes, that was me. What was I thinking? And then you had another one called, Dear Jaime, you didn't need that job anyways. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And so what prompted you to write that series? It was very, well, here's what I loved about it. I love that you were like, look, I used to have a lot of junk, and there's no shame in that. And I'm okay with sharing with you all on my very wildly popular blog about some of the junk that I've walked through and been through and created for myself. And I'm a new person. And I just love that and respect that so much. So did you have like, was it a thought, or was it just like one day you're like, let me just start writing some letters to myself?
Well, thanks. Well, someone, and forgive me for not knowing who, there's someone who does a challenge every October. I think that's when it is.
Okay.
And so when I used to blog more, I would see these challenges that they would do. And it's where they encourage someone to write every day for 31 days.
Okay.
So hard, right?
Yeah, discipline, baby. That's
so I think if you look at those letters, I don't think there's 31 of them, like, because I didn't make the challenge. But I was like, okay, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write letters to my former self, because don't we all wish we could go back and tell ourselves like the things that I just said, like, get over it. You're going to be fine. Or you think it's the worst day of your life. And then 15 years later, you're like, it wasn't that bad.
Yes.
Life turned out okay.
Well, it's like when I look at myself now, like 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, I thought, oh gosh, if I could just lose 20 pounds. And then now I look at myself and I'm like, if I could just be where I was 10 years ago. It's that feeling where you're like, what was I thinking? My waist was amazing.
Amazing. I want to go back and tell my 19-year-old self, you are not fat. Don't ever say that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So I
just said, let me go back. And it was one of the very first times that I was pretty vulnerable with some things in my past. So there's some funny ones, obviously, don't hang out with your friends' boyfriends, but there were also some very just kind of real ones. And I remember it was the first time I said things out loud, like on the internet, and the feedback was just fabulous, because women were saying, man, I've never told anyone this either. And so for me, it was just what you said. It was just a thing of like, I want to say out loud, break down the walls, break down the shame. Women, let's just be able to talk about things. And so that's kind of where that all came from.
I love it. And I love that you shared a lot of your faith in some of those posts. And obviously that's a huge part of your story and who you are. You're married to a pastor. And so tell me about being married to a pastor. Is that lonely at times, or or do you have just tons of relationships? I mean, the label of pastor's wife, I just wonder if that makes people be like, oh gosh, can't hang out with Jaime because I have this, or I don't act this way. Yes, exactly. So tell me about being a pastor's wife.
I get that feeling from people a lot when they ask about pastors' wives. And I'll tell you what the deal is. I have been a pastor's wife, obviously, for almost 17 years. And it was one of the hardest things about my first years of marriage to Aaron, because I felt that way. I felt
isolated.
I felt like I had to have my stuff together. I can't let anyone know what I struggle with.
Yeah.
And I take responsibility for bringing that a lot on myself. But I also wonder if the church didn't really have a culture where if they kind of put these women up on pedestals. And the thing that I love about my church that I go to now is I guarantee you a church member who goes to our church all the time could not pick out or name all the pastors' wives, because it's just not that big of a deal. I mean, it's just not. And our church really has a culture of just vulnerability and confession and we're all in this together. And so that's really helped me become who I am, where I'm just like, here's who I am. So I don't feel lonely. I don't feel those pastor wife struggles. Like someone asked me on an interview the other day, they're like, do you ever have a time as a pastor's wife where someone says like they'll call you and then they forget and then you feel left out? And I was like, no, I have my friends. Like I don't even know what that means. But I think that's the kind of mentality and kind of culture of some churches. And so I'm not naive to think that pastors' wives don't struggle with that, because I think they do.
Yes.
I'm honored and blessed that I don't.
Yeah.
And I would guess, I guess I should survey the other pastors' wives at our churches. I don't think they would either.
That's awesome. It's probably, and kudos to your church for creating that really great environment then where, and I think that our church that I go to is the same way. I hang out with some of the pastors' wives and they're
just normal people.
Yeah. And maybe it was different 10 or 20 years ago. And so were you raised in church?
I was raised in Baptist church, went to church my whole life, acted like a fool most weekends and I don't think I was really a Christian until later in life, but I've always been in church my whole life.
Yeah. And I love that. For some reason, were you raised in the South or were you raised somewhere else?
In the South, in Texas.
You've always been in Texas.
Except for a couple of years that Aaron and I lived in Tennessee, but I've been in Texas my whole life.
Yeah. So tell us about your book. I'd love to hear more about your book.
Yeah, so I have a book that's coming out, and it's called If You Only Knew. and it comes out the end of January. And honestly, you mentioned those posts I wrote, those 31 letters to myself.
Yeah.
That kind of spurred on a lot of this conversation of, I think I should take this a little bit further and take this a little bit more and share my story. And so a lot of it is my story. Like, I grew up in the church, but I wouldn't have called myself, on looking back now, I don't believe that I was a Christian then. And I just made a lot of just poor choices that had a lot of consequences come along with them, and then married a pastor. And so then I brought a lot of like shame and guilt and all kinds of stuff that I just labeled with myself. And so the book is just my journey of coming to freedom through that, and figuring out and believing God's love for me and the plans that he had for me.
Yeah.
And then it's also just an encouragement for women to just love each other and be for each other. And
amen for that.
Yeah. So it's that. It's like, it's my journey towards freedom, talking about that.
Awesome. Are people able to pre-order it or not quite yet?
You can pre-order it. You can pre-order it at ifyouonlyknewbook.net, or you can get it on Amazon. And I always like to tell people, because when people pre-order books, you can get like goodie prizes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that the one that we came up with is amazing.
Oh, I want to hear about it. Okay. Yes. Tell me about it.
My husband and I, along with some great friends of ours, Brad and Noelle Otts, we bought a glamping retreat center.
I love glamping.
Okay, good. Because I told someone about it the other day and they didn't know it. So it's a glamping retreat center about 25 miles outside of Austin.
Yes.
We have yurts. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what a yurt is, but some people don't even know what glamping is. I call it glamorous camping. What do you define it as?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, glamorous camping.
So like, I don't camp. Like
same girl.
No.
I gotta have a toilet and I gotta have a hair dryer.
Yes. So this is like where you could glamp, because the yurts are like huge tents, but there's a queen size bed in it and a desk and a chair.
I didn't know they were called an yurt. Yes. Spell that for me.
Yurt. Y-U-R-T.
No way. Y-U-R-T. Okay.
I'm going to send you the link when we're done.
Okay. One bed, or the place I've been glamping, there was 3 queen size mattresses in one tent, Jaime. It was amazing. Each of us girls, we went for my birthday 2 years ago.
That's so fun.
It was so fun. So each of us girls had our own bed. It was amazing.
I love it. So we have 2 yurts. They each have a queen size bed. And then we have like an Airstream where like a family could stay, because there's a bed and bunk beds. And then we have another small one. And then we have a cabin. So it's beautiful. It's in the country. We have donkeys and alpacas and a restroom and a shower. I mean, come on, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And how can you say no to an alpaca?
You can't at all. So anyhow, we came up with the idea that if you pre-order and then, send in that you pre-ordered and register, we're going to pick a winner to win a trip there, all included, like travel, everything, for 2 people, dinner with Aaron and I. Weekend.
I am so pre-ordering when we get off this call.
Isn't that the best?
It's the best ever. But I don't think people understand. Glamping is so stinking cool.
It's the best.
So
and ours has an outdoor kitchen, like a full kitchen, stove, and everything.
Okay. I'm all over that. I totally love it. So did you enjoy the process of writing a book?
It was so hard.
Right?
It was so hard. I enjoy more. I'm like a marketer, kind of, like, not really, like I didn't go to school or anything, but I enjoy doing that for my podcast. And so I'm enjoying this part.
Yes.
Writing was hard for me. Writing's not my first gifting. I'm much better with the microphone. And
yeah, me too.
So that was hard for me, but I had, writing a book is a team effort. Like, don't ever think that the only person's name on the cover did all the work, because you have, a team of people that make this book amazing and beautiful. And so that's been fun to walk through. It's been fun to see people work together. It was hard emotionally a lot. I'm going back and writing about things in my past, and I have to get back in it. And I'm like, no, I already conquered this. I'm not going to feel this again. But I felt it, and then had to kind of like move through it again. And so
rewash yourself almost.
Yes. So that was hard.
Yeah.
So it was good to finish.
Yeah. Did you take a while to write it? I mean, is it something you just whipped out in 6 weeks, baby? You were done.
I didn't whip anything out. I had some of the stuff already written, because I've been wanting to write a book for a while. So some of the stuff I had already written that I needed to rework. It'd been a couple of years. The funny thing is that my husband and I were writing books at the same time, which I never, ever, ever recommend. Ever.
Okay.
No. Because I'm like, I need to go write. He's like, I need to go write. We're like, we have 4 kids. Like, I need a weekend. He needs a weekend. So it was so hard. And so my book was due the end of February of this year, 2017. And his was due the end of December. So I would write a little bit in the fall, but I didn't hit the ground running until he turned his book in, because we had a tag team so much.
Yeah. And so what's his book about, and what's it called?
Oh, it's good. I have it right here. It's called Steal Away Home. And it is a historical fiction novel about Charles Spurgeon and his friend Thomas. Oh my gosh, I almost said Thomas Jefferson. That would not be it. Thomas Johnson. Okay. Yeah. It's a historical fiction. It came out in August, and it's really, really great. I'll
Okay.
send you a copy.
So cool. So tell us what's the thing keeping you up at night right now? I know that's a deep, deep question, but I love that question.
It is a deep question.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that keeps me up as a mama raising 3 Black children is just that, like, how do
Yeah.
I raise them well in a culture that sometimes is going to think less of them because of their skin color?
Mhm.
How do I raise them well in a community that we live in where they are very much a minority?
Yep.
How do I raise them well just in 2017, 18, and
Mhm.
beyond in a country that sometimes already thinks something bad about them before they even walk in the door? That keeps me up at night a lot.
Yeah.
And it's serious. Like, we just kind of like dropped a bomb serious. But I'm glad that I'm glad it keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that it's important to me because I think I'd be doing an injustice as a mom and to my kids if it didn't keep me up at night.
Absolutely.
So we've been having a lot of conversations with our
Mhm.
kids, and
Yeah.
we love to keep that conversation open. And the thing about kids, teenagers especially, is they're not necessarily going to bring that to us all the time. So Aaron and I are constantly bringing
Like
this up
checking
at our
in on
house,
their hearts.
checking
Yeah.
in. Yep. And we were checking in just recently, and they told us about something that had happened,
Yeah.
that was very inappropriate, and it happened because their skin is Black. And so more conversation. And so
Yeah.
that's heavy on my heart these days.
Yeah. I can imagine though that you guys just do an incredible job navigating that. I can already
We
sense that about.
try. We
Yeah.
try. It's hard. It's a value of ours. It's important.
Yeah.
I want my kids, I want them to be proud of their skin color. That's how
Yeah.
God made them. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? There's nothing wrong with it. God
Right.
made you, and God makes beautiful things. And so
Amen.
I want them to feel that.
Yeah, that's good. What's the thing that's getting you up in the morning?
Oh,
I know. And you could say coffee if that's the truth.
I'm a coffee drinker. And when I started drinking coffee was when I had my second kid. I never drank coffee in college. I know that was
Yeah.
years ago, but that's when I started drinking coffee. And I love my coffee in the morning. But I will say this as well. I do love my job.
Me too,
And
girl.
I love my job. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just this, like,
It's like playing all day some days.
it's so much fun. It's so
Yeah.
much fun. I mean, doing the interviews, it's not like we do this all the time. There's other stuff that goes into our jobs,
Sure.
but it's just so much fun. I mean,
Yeah. No,
what?
every day I'm so grateful to God because I know, like, I came out of an environment of working at a desk job. I did software development for years. I know, right? I don't even know how that happened. Well, I know how it happened. I picked the degree based on the dollars that I could make
Oh, there you go.
because I never thought I could make any money decorating and painting and doing the thing that I loved. And so, but I know when I talk to women who hate their job and feel stuck, like literally it breaks my heart because I remember those feelings and I want to like somehow grab them by the hand, Jaime, and just like help them over the hump to find something that they love because life is way too short to hate what you're doing every day, you know?
Totally. And the thing is, it's 2017, almost 2018. We have the internet. Your opportunities to do what you love literally are just so wide open.
Wide open spaces.
Wide open.
Totally. I
Create
totally
your own
agree.
company and you can thrive.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Okay, let's do a quick lightning round.
Okay.
So, favorite book you've read recently?
The Hate You Give.
The Hate You Give. I've never heard of it.
Oh, you got to look it up. It's really, really good.
Okay, on Audible, I hope, because that's the only way I read books.
There you go.
Okay. Favorite place to vacation?
Tulum, Mexico, hands down.
Tulum, Mexico, which is close to.
We fly into Cancun.
Oh, gotcha. We were just in Cancun a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's so.
Tulum is you will never go anywhere else in Mexico again. I promise, hands down.
Okay, Googling that also. What's your favorite Netflix series? And if you tell me you don't watch anything on Netflix, then I'm going to feel like Netflix shame because I have a lot of series that I like.
No, you will not feel. You're with. I'm watching. I watched Parenthood when it was out. Did I watch that on Netflix? Yeah, so I watched it behind. I was a little behind.
Yeah.
And then Aaron and I did Friday Night Lights, which, we're in Texas. You got to love Friday Night Lights. It's about football.
Okay. So I don't love football, actually.
But you would still love Friday Night Lights because Aaron doesn't love football either, and he loved the show. So.
Okay. So then I'll totally look it up. My son, has a football game tonight. It's supposed to be 42 degrees. I'm going to be angry on the inside, but I will be sitting there. All right. Last question. Favorite room in your house? I always have to ask like a decorating question.
Well, I told you I'm not a decorator, but my favorite room in my house is probably my kitchen because our family does so much life there.
Yeah.
And the best time of my week, which just doesn't happen often now that we have older kids, but the best time of my life is when Aaron's cooking, all the kids are there, glass of wine is there, and we're just
Yep.
all there. It's my favorite. I love
Family.
it.
Yeah, I
Family,
love that
it.
too. Jamie, thank you so much for being here today. Would you tell people like which of your social medias is your favorite that you'd like them to come connect with you on?
Instagram.
Instagram,
It's my
baby.
favorite. It's my
I'm
favorite. You can find me there. It's easy. It's just at Jaime Ivey.
at Jamie Ivey. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And your book again, they can find on Amazon.
Yes, if you only knew.
If you only knew. And then we're going to be arm wrestling like me and a million other people to see who can win the glamping. And thank you just so much. I just appreciate you. And I appreciate your podcast. If you guys have not listened to Jamie's podcast, just literally download the podcast app on your phone. Or if you're listening to this on my website, go to jamieivey.com. You can find it there. But her podcast is fascinating. It's uplifting. It's thoughtful. I just love it so much. It's one of the best that I've heard. So Jamie, thanks for being here, honey. And I promise you I'm going to make it down to Austin sometime. Just
Come on, let's go.
All right. So for you guys listening, thank you again for being here. Go give Jamie some love on social media. If you have some time, I'd love it if you could also just swing by iTunes and give us a review for the podcast over there. It really helps all things podcasty. So feel free to email us at podcast@themagicbrushink.com with any of your thoughts or ideas, or if you just have some feedback for me, and I will respond to you there. Until next week, you guys stay creative. Thanks so much.